Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Carger, and with me is Steve Schneider. We are the co-presidents of Brotherhood at Temple Beth Am, and we want to welcome all of you today, and especially the veterans today, and say a special thank you to their past service for all that they've done for this great country. Brotherhood continues to think of ways to offer programs to you, but certainly welcomes any suggestions from our membership. We want to thank those who have committed to paying their dues and also continue to support Brotherhood at this time. We want to remind you that the dues have remained current and we are not increasing those for the 2022 season. Please continue to watch for emails from Brotherhood or Temple FM about upcoming events, or visit the Temple's website at www.tempbetham.org for more information about Brotherhood. And for today's lecture, we have Henry Hayes, and who is currently the town manager, and I will allow Stu Slavid to introduce Henry in a little bit. I do want to thank Jerry Saslov for coordinating, arranging, and really working with Henry and Stu to have Henry come today and present. And with that said, I will turn it over to Cantor Wolff to say this morning's Motzi. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So I am Cantor David Wolff, and happy to be here at this Brotherhood event. And I am here with my 7th grade friends. So will you guys all come stand behind me so you can be seen?
Okay.
So here I am with our TBA 7th grade class. Everybody wave. So this is our Brotherhood group, and we're here celebrating Veterans Day. And as we know, in Judaism, we are called on to serve those in need and support those who need our help. And of course, that's one of the chief aims of the military. And if we think about all the humanitarian crises going on now, it's so wonderful to have this speaker and for us to be honoring Veterans Day in this way. And it's also just a pleasure for me to be here with some folks on Brotherhood who I don't know all of you, and it's nice to see all of you. So of course we're thankful for our military, and we're also always thankful for the little things in life, like the fact that we can sustain ourselves. So I've got a lovely challah here, and I'm going to make motzi and break bread. And 7th graders, you guys, so I have a motzi team here with me. So please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. I want to thank you, Henry Hayes, for being here, and thank Brotherhood for inviting me to lead us in the Motzi. So have a wonderful day, everyone.
Cantor, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right,
Thank you, class.
I will turn it over to Stu. If you want to formally introduce Henry, we can move along. Thank you.
Henry Hayes Jr. is a retired Air Force with just under 30 years of service. He started his Air Force career in maintenance, and after 15 years, he stepped out of the field completely and into the world of education. In 2005, he became one of the few enlisted members to work on developing and instructing on academic curriculum for Squadron Officer School. This was in Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, teaching future officers about Air Force leadership, ethics, and communication. Henry eventually achieved the rank of Chief Master Sergeant and was the command chief at Hanscom Air Force Base. He said that the first sergeant position forced him to face people in their highest and lowest moments, and that the greatest lessons he's learned came during that time, as well as their greatest challenges. He became intimately familiar with the pain of people and has helped many through difficult times. Henry is currently the town manager in Sudbury. This morning, let us all welcome Henry Hayes Jr.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here on today. I do want to thank Jerry Saslav and Stu and Bill and Steve. I appreciate all that you all have done to help to prepare me for this this moment, or few moments that we'll share together. As stated, I served in the Air Force right at 30 years. I say 29 years, 10 months, and 21 days, but who's counting, right? and then had the great opportunity for transition from serving in uniform to serving the town of Sudbury as the town manager. I've been there just over a year and a half. So I went in on April 1st, 2020, and for some reason it was not a joke and still not, right? That whole April Fool's thing, I don't know how that actually played out. It still seems like some portions are unreal. As a result of the pandemic and things that we're doing. And this is one of those examples of things that we're doing differently as a result of the pandemic. So I thank everyone for signing in on today. And, I guess maybe it's not too late if others are still going to be signing in. So, if you need to call or text somebody, I'm okay with them popping in whenever they get here. I'll start with a few things from my background as far as my path from an aircraft maintainer, and I'll bring a little bit of currency regarding the town manager, but I'll step through my military career, hopefully in a not in a drawn out way. So I started out. I was age 17 when I graduated high school. I was in Columbus, Georgia. I'm the son of an Army soldier. And my dad essentially told me while I was in high school, if I wanted to go in the Army, I had to fight him and win. So that took care of that. There was no way I was going to engage that kind of competition with my dad, right? Because I tried that at age 13, it really didn't work. I think I flew like Superman. When I graduated high school, again, I was age 17. And one thing that I did was within 4 hours of graduating high school, I got on a Greyhound bus and left my mom's house and went to Fort Worth, Texas from Columbus, Georgia. And nobody except for my best friend in life believed that I was going to leave. And my best friend knew I was going to go because he was with me when I bought the ticket, earlier. So you can imagine parents taking you to the airport because you've insisted, not the airport, the bus station, because you've insisted so desperately. And then, them not knowing that I actually had a ticket to get on the bus. So, to their, especially my mom's surprise when the air brakes let on the bus, it was a game changer. But I left and went to Fort Worth, Texas. My goal was to, be grown in on my own as a 17-year-old. I had already cycled through the thoughts of if I was going to go in the military or not. I had no intent at all. I actually, one day while looking for a job, because I was fairly diligent in doing that when I first got out there, I went to the mall to play with the recruiter. And I figured that I would play with the Air Force recruiter. If I was going to go in the military, in my mind back then, it was I would be a Marine. And so I went playing with the Air Force recruiter. And some of the things he said actually sounded pretty good, but I was like, still no. And so what I did was I knew that based on, some of the conversations I had with my dad that, recruiters, they kind of stack their people so that, they can have enough coming in at certain points of the month and certain times of the year. And I figured, I'll challenge him and I'll tell him, if you can't get me in before my 18th birthday, don't ever call me. And so that was the end of June, maybe early July, and my birthday's in August. And a few days later, I get a call and I said, hey, I said, don't ever call me. He said, how about the 10th of August? And I was like, golly. So my dad had instilled into me a few really good values. And one of them was hold your word. Hold your word, even if you swear to your own hurt. And so because, you do the math, carry the one, that's before my birthday. I guess I'll do it. So off we go into the wild blue yonder. It was not a great quality choice. as a 17-year-old, just doing a dare. but it actually turned out to be a really, really great decision. So at age 17, you have to have a parent to sign for you. I told my dad how everything went, and he was glad to sign for me because I was being a man of my word. So I get to basic training, and I have absolutely no guaranteed job because of the way I entered. There was no real discussion on you can do this or do that. I'd taken the ASVAB test to see aptitude, and maintenance was my absolute lowest, but it was the only area that was open for this recruiter to put me in. And so I was not enamored with aircraft. I really didn't care anything about airplanes, and that's what I ended up being assigned to as an aircraft maintainer. They told me in basic training what my job would be, and I was like, oh, what's that? But what happened was I was told that, you can retrain later on in your career, go back to your flight, and do what you're supposed to do. I said, okay, yes, sir. Went on back and continued with basic training, completed that, went off to aircraft structural maintenance school, which is kind of like an auto body person for an airplane. And so I did that, had absolutely no love for it, but I was determined that I would be the very best technician that I could be. And at a certain point, I wanted to be the very best technician, period. And so I got in there and started hustling. Because they told me at some point I could retrain, I tried to retrain many, many times to no avail until later on in my career. But despite not having all this great love for airplanes, I just needed to know what type of airplane is it so I can have the right manual. That way I can get the job done properly. Throughout my aircraft maintenance time, I was very, very fortunate to have not only deployed and gone to various places around the world, but I was able to work with the Japanese Air Force, the Spanish Air Force, trained with someone from Africa, and then Japan, Spain, Africa, and there was another country that. Maybe it was Great Britain. No, Israel, on some advanced technologies for aircraft battle damage repairs. And that was awesome. Oh my goodness. Just being exposed to those different mindsets and approaches to aircraft maintenance allowed me to wonder what else I could do in the Air Force. And so that led me to want to try to branch out and get out of aircraft maintenance again. And about just under the 15-year mark, I was able to leave aircraft maintenance and go into education and training. And except I was an enlisted member, and I was trying to do education and training and leadership development for enlisted members, but I ran across a job description that I had never seen before, and it was new. One other person had served in that position, and he was getting ready to leave that post. And so I made a phone call just to inquire, hey, what is this thing that you're doing? The next thing you know, I get a call saying, hey, you're the guy we want to come into this position based on my experience with deployments and some other things, and just my approach to communication. And so I ended up going from, at that point, Georgia to Alabama, and I went into a officer training environment where it's a professional military education or leadership training for our first two levels of officers, our lieutenants and our captains. And I was the only, once I got there, I was the only enlisted member building curriculum for their leadership, communication, ethics, and things related to that. The person that I don't say replaced, I say I displaced people because I won't be the exact same as the last person. But, I'll help to facilitate, the change from their hands to mine. And so we added expeditionary thoughts and activities and actions. And so, essentially more war gaming and preparation for leading in a combat or austere conditions. And that really opened my eyes up to deeper levels of desire to make people better, just in general. One thing that happened while I was there in that organization, I became the additional duty first sergeant, which means I had to do my regular job and I had to chase down bad actors. Be an HR guy on steroids. That opportunity really took me to another level in my service to the people. The first thing that I had to work was as a result of the guy who was in that position. He went on vacation and he gave me the cell phone for temporary time while he was out. And the next day after he went on vacation, there was a situation that produced a really, really big case. And when he got back from vacation, our boss, said that I was going to see the case all the way through to trial. And all the way through the trial ended up being for 3+ years. Even though the trial ended in December of that same year, she just kept me in that position. And then the commanders after her just continued with having me serve in that responsibility. But it helped me, between the functional role and the first sergeant role, helped me to grow compassion in a different way for humanity. It helped me to learn more and structure more regarding the subject and topic of emotional intelligence. And it really made me take a step back and see people in a deeper way. It was mentioned that in my first sergeant roles, both the additional duty and in the full-time first sergeant responsibility, I became intimately familiar with the pains of people. The first sergeant role is one of those that deals with deployments, deals with development, and deals with discipline. I say that there's some P's to first sergeant duty. For some reason, I started using a letter and started building off of that. And the P's of first sergeant duty, I'd say they're including but not limited to. I'll put that little disclaimer out, right? The papa, the preacher, the parole officer, the poor man's paralegal, the private eye, the pattern watcher, the pumper and the primer, the praiser, the promoter, the peacemaker, and the commander's pit bull and pistol. Except that when it comes to the pit bull and the pistol piece, I was well trained. I knew when to just sit and growl. I knew, when to stand up. I knew when to be the gentle giant in the room. But I also, as it relates to the pistol, we know that it's the pistol is not a bad thing in and of itself. It's whose hands it's in and what it's used for, because we like the law enforcement to have it. We don't like the criminals to have them, right? And so I was able to learn how to balance through a whole lot of situations and be able to dispose of situations that required discipline and character adjustment. And I actually created this logic and mindset and a pattern of a recovery plan, because I realized that at a certain point, when you have someone that messes up in an organization, whether it's somewhere where you work or worked or in a uniform, oftentimes people start getting ready to just, offload a person, and they start putting less and less value on folks. And I realized when I was talking to a supervisor, they said, well, we just need to kick them out of the Air Force. And I was like, no, we throw things away, not people. We have an opportunity to reshape this young person's life, and we're going to do it. And as a leader and as a supervisor, you are going to fulfill your obligation to serve and to make this young person better. And so I created what I call the recovery plans. But that was based off of what I call beef tips. Some may remember the commercial, "Where's the beef?" Well, again, I like word pictures, and so and I'm greedy. I like to eat. So I took the mindset of beef tips, and I use that for a model when something goes wrong. I think about the behavior that or the it. Something went wrong. What was it? What was that behavior? Or what was that it? What was the effect? What are the emotions of the person who did it? What's the feeling of the leadership team? And then timeline, influences, and potentials. And when it comes to timeline, how long have we known the person? How many times have they done something good or bad? Influences, were any chemicals involved? Did they grow up in a household that put them at a disadvantage? Or did someone say, "Yeah, man, go do this," and they knew it was wrong? Potentials, what's the least to the greatest thing that would bring forth an effective change? Just because you can do the worst thing to someone doesn't mean you have to, and doesn't mean you need to. What's the most effective thing to cause the right change? And those are some of the approaches that I started using, and also started teaching across the way. I served as a first sergeant in the rank of E7, E8, and E9, which means I stayed way too long in that responsibility. Unfortunately, I had the unfortunate honor of dealing with end-of-life issues in multiple scenarios and situations. But to be able to honor the memory of someone and to serve their family in times of great need, I do count that as an honor, for real. And so it just wasn't the most comfortable thing to do, which, caused me to start thinking about and touting how we need to guard against and prepare people for what they call compassion fatigue, because that's a real thing. I served as a first sergeant, a chief master sergeant, and first sergeant in the Pentagon, in the Air Force District of Washington, which is the strangest command in the United States Air Force, as well as the largest command in the United States Air Force, which is Air Combat Command. After serving in those various roles in 2017, the Air Force saw fit for me to be a candidate and be selected to be a command chief. And that's when I came to Hanscom Air Force Base up here just around the Bedford area. And I was able to take all of the activities, events, and knowledge and experiences that I had and culminate them into a base level type of leadership, where I was able to learn some really cool things, like at what rate of snowfall is it too much for the street plows to keep up? Therefore, we need to close roads, travel, and in the offices. Never had to think about that before I got to New England. But nonetheless, we went through the time here in as the command chief of Hanscom Air Force Base, and that's where I met Jerry Saslav and was able to really formalize and forge that relationship by some of the things that we were able to do together along the way. And I started to think, okay, I'm getting a little bit long in the tooth on this Air Force thing. There is a jump off point that you have to leave. What am I going to do next? And in 2018, on a very snowy day, where we had closed the base because of the amount of snowfall that was coming, but key and essential personnel must report to work. So, those fire, police, same thing that would be in a regular town, the people that run the snow plows, and in a 3-story building. It was myself, my boss, the sound from the HVAC system, and the sound from the snow plows outside. And I was actually pretty glad about it because, the phone wasn't ringing. I wasn't getting, 20 emails an hour. And, but I was a little bored too. So I went messing with my boss just to give him what I call a healthy brain break. And I said, hey, so let's play a game. I'm going to call you the mayor of Hanscom. What does that make me? And so we always interacted with the local officials, especially those surrounding the base, as well as for Boston and some of the state and federal leaders. And so we played our little game, and in that was the position of assistant town manager or assistant city manager, or chief of staff, or depending on the size, maybe the actual town manager. And so that game ended this, just in a few minutes. And that was in February. By May, I was preparing to go to a transition class. We try to prepare people to leave the uniform and go into, what they're going to do after their time serving. And as a joke, because they told me that I cannot introduce myself by my rank and responsibility, I said, "Hello, my name is Henry Hayes, and in my next life, I'm going to breed Japanese Akitas, pygmy goats, miniature horses while I'm the city manager any town USA." And I really didn't plan on saying it, but that's what came out of my mouth. And during one of the breaks, a young fellow came up to me and he said, "Hey, do you know where to find those jobs?" And I said, "Breeding? No, I think I'm all set. I don't need to find a job posting for breeding." And he was like, "Didn't you say city manager?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I did." And I was this close from saying that was a joke. And he said, "My best friend just got hired. I'll get you a link before the class is over." And I did my homework on, we had to build elevator speeches, all that kind of stuff. I did my homework on city and town management to find those jobs. And I saw on that list, Bedford, Massachusetts, and Americus, Georgia. And I bring those up on purpose because Bedford, Massachusetts, we interacted with them all the time with the base. Americus, Georgia is where my parents were born. And I said, you have my attention. Why did I see both of these on this night? Why did I say city manager? Let me see what this is about. And so I ended up actually going through trying to, see what all the qualifications are. I sat with the Bedford town manager who had 33 years of experience. And I told him, "Tell me that this is a pipe dream and that I should forget about this thought. But if that's not your opinion, I need you to tell me how to close the gap, because I have some." And so he gave me some advice. He said that it was a realistic goal that I could set, but I would have to work hard. And that's exactly what I did. I started the very next month after that conversation to try to close some of the known and perceived gaps. And I sit before you today as the town manager of Sudbury, Massachusetts. I will tell you that, the concept of faith is something that is really, really important for resiliency and for staying focused in times of challenges and in times of dealing with people and their pains. And I appreciate anyone that has strong faith belief systems, because that helps us to be able to move farther down the road. Whether we all agree or whether we don't, it is the character and the focus and the discipline that allows us to be able to do the right thing. So I think I'll pause there for any questions, comments, concerns. I do have some what people will call war stories, but I won't actually talk about war. So I do see a question in the chat that says, "Do any of your children have military aspirations? If so, what branch of the military would you recommend or not recommend for them?" So I forgive me, I failed to say that I am married to the same woman without a break for over 30 years. I'm not looking for one. We didn't have a honeymoon originally, but we still got honey in the moon. And we have 4 extra eaters. Children. The older 2 are grown and on our own. I call them graduated to full independence until they need something, right? And then we have 2 15-year-olds at the house. My oldest works for the United States Air Force, but not a uniform wearer. She works as a civilian employee. And then number 2, and I have 3 girls and a boy. I call them 1, 2, 3, and the boy. So number 2, she's into tech stuff, and she's actually going to get married next September. And number 3 is a 15-year-old still in the house. Number 4, the boy, is also a 15-year-old in the house. I do not see that any of them would go into the military just based on their character. And the boy has some things that would disqualify him from serving from a medical standpoint. But when people ask me about, what branch of service I would recommend, I absolutely would recommend the Air Force. Now we have the United States Space Force, which is, basically an offshoot from the Air Force, because most of those space functions belonged in the Air Force originally. So just like the Air Force was birthed out of the Army, now the Air Force has birthed the Space Force. So I guess it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? But the Air Force, the Space Force, and then I actually would say the Coast Guard would probably be next. Now it's the smallest, but it's actually under Homeland Defense, but it is a great organization that some people just simply overlook. We're accustomed to the Army and the Marine Corps and the Navy, and all of them have their great worth and value, and I like, love, and trust them all. So let's see. If I had not joined the Air Force, where do you think you would be today? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm glad that I did leave the day that I graduated high school, because that was a game changer for me and put me on a different trajectory in life. I think that I have an affinity for humanity. So perhaps I would have gone into something that, is in human services. I now know, looking backwards, that I can be in some very tough situations and remain calm. So, if for whatever reason I'm not doing this type of work that I'm doing now, I would probably do something that would have a leadership role, but also more aimed at humanitarian type work. That to me is really important. And maybe it's just because of what I've been exposed to. Just a real quick aside, when I was in Japan, my wife and I went to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where the big bombs went off back in the day. And there's still a lot of remnants and residues, so to speak, that's there. And there's I can't remember how many people actually survived both blasts. Like, there was one person who ran from one and went to the other location only to be met with another blast. And but having gone on that trip as an American, as a service member in the country of Japan, it actually reshaped how I see large-scale military engagements of force. When I was a young airman, and I came in 1990, and that was right at the beginning of the issues with Kuwait and Iraq and all that kind of stuff. And back then, I said some very foolish things. I out of just, spite and being, an American that was wearing a uniform and just all fired up about military service, I really did say some things that now I would never say again, when it comes to large scale military use of force. Having gone through those sites at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I see the after effects still remains. And it was a game changer from a psychological, standpoint. A lot of people's lives not only ended, but those that survived, their lives and those after them have changed forever. Their lineage is no longer the same. And so I believe that's not a new concept for you all. So, if I'm not doing the type of work that I did or type of work that I'm doing, I'm definitely trying to help humanity. Let's see, here's a question. What disciplines were you able to transfer from the military to town government? That's a good question. And if I wasn't in the military, I think I would have still gone into town politics. I guess I'll take those together. If I had not been in my last role, had I taken a different job after I went to Hanscom, because I had an opportunity to go and do another job after I got to Hanscom, and I said, no, I think I'm all set. I think I want to age out right here because of the things that I was learning, and because I had that time in 2018 to where I said, I kind of can see some links to what I could do in the future. Had I made a different decision, and actually one thing that was presented to me was to go to Guantanamo and serve as a senior leader there. That definitely would have shifted me again, regarding what potential future desires would have been. But I saw the value in community-wide service. So, the civil engineering type approach and the logistics, naturally police, fire, medical is something that's definitely cross-functional throughout whatever environment or community. I like to protect people. I like to see service happen. So even like, I know somebody's gonna say, don't say it, but it's November. And last year we had that fluffy stuff at the end of October, and it stayed around for a while, and then it kept coming back. I like to see that stuff mitigated and to clear the streets and, all of that stuff. I like to see, people have the services of a park and recreation and pools and all of that. To me, that equals health, and that brings balance to our, the way that we interact. And so I'm very passionate about that. As far as leading in a town, I am, I don't think I said this earlier, I am hired, not elected. So I am all about service provision. And I give recommendations and advice to our elected officials, and the elected officials are my supervisor, but it is my goal as the employee to not be in the politics of things. Is it avoidable? Probably not. I think that just, they kind of just pull me in one way or another, but I don't participate in politics part. Yeah, I'm all about the service provision, and what I did throughout my career in the uniform did prepare me for, leading the teams that do provide these services. I'm very, very grateful for the role that I'm in, because I will never be a regular citizen ever again. I now have seen the strings on the puppet regarding local government. I understand some of the approaches that happen in local government and even beyond, in a way deeper way than had I just, not gone this route in my career. I actually was probably not a great citizen as far as of a community when I was in the military. I didn't get involved in hardly anything. I just did stuff for the base. And maybe I did like, Toys for Tots or some kind of food drive, but it was not to the same degree of my knowledge now. And I now am inviting people to get involved, in their communities, regardless of where they live, because that's how we make changes. So hopefully I answered that. Here's another question. Most of us know that Hanscom exists, but don't really know what goes on there from a military standpoint. Can I tell you more about the base? Certainly. So Hanscom is on an airfield, but the military does not own that airfield. That is a part of Massport as far as the flight line. And so I think Hanscom stopped flying military planes there and owning the runway in 1972, I believe. Yeah, 72 or 74. Can't remember exactly right now. So please forgive me for that regarding the year. But either way, it wasn't yesterday, right? The base is kind of in concert with the region. So this region is known for ingenuity, innovation, and acquisition of different goods and services. And Hanscom is the same. So Hanscom is a part of the Air Force Life Cycle Management. And so what that essentially means is we have an airplane system. Pick your favorite airplane or whichever airplane that you know of. Pick a commercial airplane just for your own example. And that airplane and all the systems involved with it have to have some forward thought on how do we sustain this thing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years? What are the improvements to the components within that throughout the life cycle or the longevity of that system? But it's not just systems associated with airplanes. It's also the human weapon system. So there are special forces type folks that need specialized equipment. So on Hanscom, some of the background work of how to improve what we have and what is the next 2-3 generations of success that can be built. Those are the type of things that happen on Hanscom beyond the normal sustainment of a base and the personnel that's assigned. Hopefully that answers that. I'll wait for some more questions if there be any, but I'll take a stroll down memory lane just for a quick second. Let me look at some of the things that I kind of jotted down as a memory jogger. I thought of one last night that I was like, I really got to tell this story. I served as a first sergeant for a very, very long time. And again, I said that a first sergeant role is kind of like the HR person on steroids. And so in that role, I've been, a part of both the start of life and end of life type activities. So, and almost everything in between. So we had a young person that always seemed to just not be in deep trouble, but just on the fringe, something just wasn't right every now and then. And so that person had a lot of my attention while we were at that unit together. And it was a young lady. She ended up being pregnant at a certain point. And I got a call from one of the other agencies saying that, hey, the ambulance just reported to your young person's house. And this agency, literally the house and the agency were almost across the street from each other, and the person lived on the base. And so I was glad I got the call because I knew that their car also was broken down. And so I go to the hospital to make sure that everything's good to go. I get the supervisors involved, and it was on a Wednesday night. I remember that very clearly. And I had not heard that the baby had been born. And I remember that because it was a Wednesday because I had gone to a church service. And when I came out, I didn't have any messages on my phone or anything like that. So I figured, oh, you know what? They don't have a car. It's been a lot of hours. I wonder if the husband has eaten. So what I did, and he was a big guy. I mean, like he was really tall, but he was also a big guy. So I figured, let me go and pick up some food and I'll take it to the hospital because, it's a good thing to do. So I go up there. I just walk by all the nursing stations, all of them. Nobody says anything to me. And I get to the door of the room number that I knew. And I'm a very bold person. And for some reason, I paused when I got to the door. And I was like, I want to go in. I want to knock, but I just want to go in. And I was like, I'm not going to go in. I'm just going to, by that time, because I paused at the door, one of the nurses gets up and comes over and she's like, can I help you? I said, yeah, well, I'm coming to see, this young lady and they're about to have a baby or if they haven't already. And she's like, so are you family? I said, well, I mean, you could say that, as much as I've been through with them, you could say that, and she says, the nurse says, well, she's pushing right now. And I said, we are not that close. I was like, I just want to bring dude some food and allow him to get something to eat. So she goes in and gives him the food and he comes out in a hurry. And he's like, thank you for saving me. Apparently that was right at the moment. But another thing that, that I'm reminded of, some of the foolishness that happens with humanity, because, military members are just a portion of humanity. And so in a portion of our United States, more specifically, so everything you'll find in society, you'll find a portion of it and hopefully a whole lot less of the foolish parts in the uniform. But sometimes it creeps in, right? So I had a young guy that really, really, he messed up regarding the internet and some of his communication with his ex-girlfriend and then eventually her mom. And he just some really foolish communication stuff. And so, he was already under the radar. And for whatever reason, he decides that he wants to communicate with some other internet services that are not probably of great worth and value. And so he almost ended up on TV because he got caught up in a sting operation. And the funny part was when I got him back in military control, I was like, hey man, what were you thinking? Like, this was not cool. And he was like, oh, no. So let me explain what I was trying to do. I was trying to actually draw the young lady out of the activities that she was in. And so I can, get her back on the straight and narrow. I said, oh, okay. So you're a social worker. And he's like, well, and I was willing to offer her, a place to stay so she wouldn't feel like she was, in this dire straits and, she wasn't making any money. I could take that burden off her. Oh, okay. All right. Now you're like a super humanitarian. Okay. I get it. And he's like, and, if I needed to marry her, I say, hey, dude, stop. Like, you're not a saint. We all know that. So just cut the riot act and let's get on to business, But, it's just all the different things that we see and engage. It's just brings back some strange and some interesting memories along the way. I do see one more question in the chat, if you'll allow me. Let's see. With leaving soldiers in Afghanistan behind and our NATO partners not notified of us leaving Afghanistan, do you think this hurts bringing young people into our military? It depends. And ultimately, I'll be bold enough to say no. I don't think that it will ultimately hinder or hurt people going into the military, because it's their heart that drives them to make that decision. And, the whether it's true patriotism or whether it's, perception of benefits and goals, or, that's what really drives those decisions, to my knowledge, for the most part. Some do have, maybe some seasoned folks that will be in their ear and say, hey, think about this, watch this in the news. What's your, perspective on these things? But I really think that what would cause a person to enter a uniform, I don't think that the most recent news and activities will dissuade them. We have some really, really determined young people, and we need them. We need that type of logic, and they will be the ones that will have the resiliency to withstand whatever criticism and or other conversations that could have come up regarding those type of subjects. So we will yield there. I don't want to be the primary causes of us going over time without being invited to do so.
Henry, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any other questions you want to ask Henry? We still have a few minutes left. All right. Henry, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic, and really appreciate your time. Obviously, your past service. Best of luck on your future endeavors, and thank you for today, for again spending the time this morning and educating everybody on what you've gone through and your experiences. I really, it's been great. It has. So thank you again, and I just want to give a quick round of applause if we could do that to Henry. But I just want to say thank you to everybody else. Appreciate that. Please, we'll wrap up and just keep an eye out for future communications, as well as any other future events that we have at Brotherhood coming up in the near future. So, Henry, I know we'll let you go, and I'm going to close out and just say thank you to all. Have a great day. Stay safe, healthy. I want to wish everybody the best, and have a great day.